Hello folks, today we're going to talk a little bit about cleaning engine cases. This happens to be the lower end crankcase of my mid-60s Yamaha YL1 restoration project. And I thought when I was working on this that it might be helpful for some folks to understand how I prepare the cases. Now these are the crank cases, not the side covers that go on this, for instance, the side here. That's a separate conversation. On this bike, those happen to be painted. The crankcases, the crankshaft fits down in the middle there, and which is out for rebuild right now, by the way. These are typically, not always, but quite often left in a raw aluminum state like this. And especially on dirt bikes or two-strokes, this is a two-stroke, they end up with a lot of goo, exhaust. The exhaust typically will weep a little bit and you'll end up with burned oil on the front. That would be this side, all down in through here, and a lot of crud and debris and sand. And what I like to do is return them to, as close as I can anyway, to as original condition and clean them up really well. And to do that, it really just requires a little elbow grease and a little time. Now I can take a raw set of cases like this, once they're stripped of the bearings and the crankcase and everything, and the crankshaft. Oh, probably 1.5 to 2 hours I can have these done and ready for the next step, which would be typically putting the bearings in and preparing for the crankshaft and to put the transmission back in. So what I'll do is I'll reposition the camera right here in a moment and show you the difference in look. I'm about, not quite halfway through restoring these cases. But first, before I do that, the materials that I use are really quite simple. I use Grease Lightning, and what I use Grease Lightning for, and it just happens to be my cleaner choice. There's others you could probably use, such as Simple Green and others. I've used Grease Lightning for years. The thing you have to be careful with Grease Lightning is you don't want, or many of these cleaners by the way, to leave the aluminum, which these are, or an alloy, exposed too long to this chemical because it'll damage it and change color. So I use it simply briefly for cleaning. I mix a 50-50 strength of this solution and I do an initial cleaning of the cases to get the crud off. Then typically I'll rinse it well, rinse the Grease Lightning solution off, and that's the initial cleaning. Then they'll go in my tank, my solvent tank, and I'll scrub them even further. This won't remove everything, I'll remove the surface debris, and I don't really want to get all the grit and sand in my cleaning tank. Once I've cleaned them with solvent in the solvent tank, then I will come back and I will re-wash them with a 50-50 solution of Grease Lightning to get all the grease and oils off of that, because I'm preparing it for a media blasting. And what you don't want to do is media blast this with oil and grit and grease on the cases and drive particularly the oils and the greases into the pores of the aluminum. You don't want to do that. So you want to get them as clean as you can before you hit them with media. Then what I do is I move to the media blasting phase, and my preferred media for something like this would be sodium bicarbonate, which is baking soda, a commercial version of it. I prefer to use sodium bicarbonate if I can. However, the problem with this kind of a product, these cases, is often sodium bicarbonate just won't touch the poor quality surface that's occurred over the years. If that's the case, I will then back up and go to a glass bead. I never go any more aggressive on aluminum cases than glass bead, ever. I don't use anything else. That's as aggressive as I will get. So then I will typically hit it with glass beads in my cabinet, do an initial blast with glass beads. Only takes 10 minutes, maybe 12 minutes. Then I'll go back to sodium bicarbonate if necessary. Sometimes it's not, but sodium bicarbonate will give it a nice smooth finish. Then it will come out looking like the case on the right here after it's been bead blasted with, again, typically glass beads and then back to sodium bicarbonate. Once I've got the bead blasting done, it goes back into a solution of this and gets washed really well to get all the grit off, because there will be residual debris from the media blasting. I'll really wash it well, I'll rinse it really well, and dry it really well to get all the media out, and I'll take my time at that. Then it will come out looking like the case on the right. So I'll reposition the camera so you can get a little bit better look. In this shot you can see the case on the right. This is the one that has been bead blasted. Started, just to reiterate, I started with glass beads, fell back to sodium bicarbonate to give it a nice consistent finish. Then I washed it thoroughly again with grease lightning, and it'll come out looking like this. What I do now, because this is the condition I want it to look like when I'm done, something like that, okay? And that's about as close as I can reproduce the factory finish as it left the factory. So in order to get there, what I will do is I will take this case, a little steel wool, I'll spray a little steel wool on here, or I'm sorry, WD-40. I'll spray a little WD-40 on here, then use a quadruple aught steel wool, the fine, and I'll just do a quick pass with the steel wool and the WD-40. I'll show you here a little demonstration. And I do this to seal the pores up, right? It doesn't take a lot. Do it very, very quickly. Get in all the cracks. And I'll do the whole case that way. It doesn't take very long. Then once I've got that done, I'll go over it with a clean, dry paper towel, and I will clean off, which you see there I just scrubbed it. You can see it comes out like that. Then, once I got it to this point, after using a little WD-40 and fine steel wool, then I'll go over it with Neverdol. And I'll just take a little piece of Neverdol, looks like that, and buy it at Auto Supply, and then I'll start scrubbing this. Now, I would take a little more time if I was doing this the real thing. This is just for demonstration purposes, and I would clean this really well, over and over and over, probably using 3 or 4 pieces of this Neverdol. You can see it gets dirty, and then this will get thrown away. You can turn it a little bit inside out and keep going. Once I've gone over it 3 or 4 times with fresh Neverdol, then I'll go back over it again with paper towel and clean it. And you want to keep using clean paper towel. Don't keep using dirty paper towel. You want to present a clean section to the work, so you're not just moving the debris and dirt around that you're cleaning off or you're pulling out of the pores. Once I have done that, then I once again take it over and completely wash it in a 50-50 solution of grease lightning in my sink. I scrub it with a scrub brush really well and take my time, and then when I'm done, it will come out looking like that, believe it or not. And this again is pretty close, I think, to the original factory finish, and it's clean inside and will be ready for bearings and preparing for reassembly. And that's really the process. Hour and a half, 2 hours, depending on the engine cases, and works really well. Again, a caution: don't use a cleaner like this for too long. Don't soak it overnight or anything like that. You'll damage the finish, probably irreparably. It's okay for quick cleaning, get in and get out and rinse it well. And this is a great product, by the way. I use this for everything, Neverdol. And a little elbow grease, and WD-40, fine steel wool, and an hour or 2 of time, and it'll look like that. And obviously you want to keep your hands clean, because otherwise what you'll do is you handle this, if you got grease on your hands, and you'll restain it, and then you got to clean it. So that's it. That's how I prepare engine cases for final preparation before I go ahead and reassemble. And there's the finished cases. Recall, this is the one that I had done previous. This is one I just finished. And I did the multi-step process. Altogether, it took me a couple of hours to do both of these. So these cases are now ready to go. So what I'll do is when I get the crank back, I'll put the bearings in the case, transmission, and reassemble the lower end. Any questions, feel free to drop me a note. Otherwise, as usual, thanks for watching.